You're listening to the Spanners and Coffee podcast.
Hello and welcome to the first ever Spanners and Coffee podcast. And we start our podcast live at the Motorcycle Live Show at the NEC. We've got lots of brilliant things to share with you over the coming 6 episodes. But today we're going to be spending time here at the show. And whilst we're at the show, your presenter is going to be Edmund Cashmore. Say hello, Edmund.
Hello.
Edmund is going to be sharing why we are supported and invited to be here by Royal Enfield, why he fell in love with the brand, and we'll be exploring why other people fall in love with different brands and telling stories. And that's what this podcast is really about. It's about telling stories, sharing our experiences, and digging into what it is about riding that creates that amazing community. But for now, let's nip back to the vicarage and we'll meet your regular hosts. So let's introduce you to the team here sat around the table at my vicarage in Hayes. First up, Alex, we have known each other for a long time.
Far too young. We were young and slim and virile when we first met. And now we're just... we ride bikes now.
Nobody will believe any of those things. And sat opposite me is Dan. Dan, we've known each other for a very long time as well.
We've known each other quite a few years, but only as clergy.
Yeah, as well. You were ordained when we first met. I wasn't.
No, you're catching up, just a young pup.
I am. But we're getting there. Now, listen, guys, I want to know why you wanted to be involved in this podcast and involved in this movement that's starting to kind of make itself known and will become more apparent in the coming months over the podcast. What is it that kind of drew you to wanting to do this, Alex?
Oh, I don't know. For me, I've realised that I ride a bike because I actually like the social side of it more. And so it's that kind of idea, sharing, finding out new things, talking to different people. And so for me, that's part of the reason for doing the podcast, really, is hearing other people's stories.
I think that's going to be a really big thing, isn't it? Over the next 6 months, we're going to hear so many fascinating stories. And it's never going to be just, I ride motorbikes because there's always that thing, motorbikes is about freedom and good mental health and all that kind of stuff. But it's also about, it is the social side of it. There's always somebody you can pick up the phone to and go, do you want to go for a ride? Or if you rock up somewhere, there's somebody who wants a natter and that's why we're all putting on weight, I think.
Yes, definitely. It's why we're all putting on weight, because we ride somewhere and then go, we'll eat while we're here. So, yeah.
So what about you, Dan? What's brought you into the podcast?
For me, I think it's bringing that different experience. You know, I love riding bikes. For me, I don't know the nuts and bolts. So I'm not sure of all the brands and all the models and all that. But for me, it's always about the experience of riding bikes. I just dreamed for years and years about riding bikes, and I have on and off. But now, after getting my license a couple of years ago, I'm just out there doing that, and it's just that, it's bringing that the passion for it, I suppose, just getting on a bike, and then that's just it.
It is amazing, though, isn't it, how biking kind of just overtakes everything. You find yourself dreaming about the motorbike, you find yourself fiddling with the motorbike, you find yourself talking about the motorbike. It drives my wife up the wall every week when MCN arrives and I open it up and she says, they've managed to find more things to write about motorbikes.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? It's I think with bikers and what I'm finding in the community, 3 of us are just quite different in our approach. Is you can get so much out of it. It's whether it's just tinkering, you find people who want to just tinker with their bike, and you get others going, I can't do that, just I want to get out and ride, but we come together and we find that community, and I think that's the cool thing about this.
But there's no criticism of one another for liking if you were into tinkering, if you're into riding, if you're into the social bit, if you're into Harley Davidson in a very specific way, there's no judgment between bikers. It's like, I love that. It's a respect for the passion and enthusiasm in one another, which doesn't seem to exist in a lot of the world right now.
Well, apart from the Harley riders, of course.
That's it.
Yeah, there's something, because there's that kind of community of bikers in a way that it does sort of bridge all the other things. And yes, we might take the mickey out of each other because somebody's leather-clad sports bike rider or something like that, and somebody else is a hipster, and I get that mickey taken out of me for being the token hipster, really. But ultimately, we all ride bikes. And that's what it comes down to. And we've got that in common. We can share that. We know that experience, which I think is the thing that probably draws us to it. That freedom, that sense of being out there. Yeah, maybe that thing of being on the edge a little bit at times, but also that sense that we get when we are kind of alone in our helmet. And it's that very mindful experience. You can let go of everything and just ride and do it.
Do you know what sums it up for me? I think the whole is the head nod. When you're going past another biker and you just acknowledge each other. That's
so, I mean, I think we
community,
need to explain to listeners at the moment that Alex and I both ride in London, and Dan doesn't ride in London. He lives out in the countryside where bikers do nod to one another.
Yeah.
In London, that's kind of...
I've started nodding, actually. I've realised, I thought, if I nod, maybe other people will nod. And I know, obviously, here we are giving a blatant plug for another podcast, but
which is really good, which inspired us. So that's a good thing.
But I've realised it actually starts working again. If you do it, people I think go, oh yeah, no, we're bikers. Well, I'll nod at you. Obviously not.
See, it's my son's favourite part when he's on his pillion on the back of my bike, and we go past another biker and we nod. He's like, on the intercom, he's like, oh,
they saw me.
It's that community.
But that is, there we go. I think we've just hit the nail on the head. Bikers see one another and really see one another. And you instantly have that connection with it with any other biker. And for me, that's why I love going to the bike shows. That's why I love going to the NEC, which of course we are live from this week. And we're going to join my son as he tells us the story of why he fell in love with Royal Enfield.
We find ourselves on the Royal Enfield stand, and we are very fortunate, of course, to be supported by Royal Enfield. But the reason we're supported by Royal Enfield is really important, because it was 12 months ago that I brought my son to the NEC show for the first time, to Motorcycle Live. And it's fair to say that Edmund's first experience of going on a bike manufacturer stand was not great. Edmund, we won't say who it was, we'll save the blushes, but tell us what happened the first time you went on a manufacturer stand at the show.
So the first time we went on a stand, we knew that we were allowed to sit on bikes because other people were doing it, we saw, so I got on a bike and I found it was a nice bike, I liked it. And then we could see other children sitting on the bikes, and then being told off by the manufacturer for sitting on the bikes but they were fully letting adults doing it, but they weren't letting children do it. So then we quickly saw that, so we quickly got off that stand and looked for another stand.
And we walked around the corner and we saw quite a few bikes, but one in particular really jumped out at you, didn't it? What was the bike that kind of jumped out at you?
It was definitely the Royal Enfield Himalayan.
Why did that bike jump out to you? What was it that attracted you to it?
It was just the good mix between old, new, and off-road, on-road, and I just liked the look of it. It just looks so cool.
But you were a little bit worried, weren't you? Because you'd just seen a bunch of children being told off for sitting on motorbikes, and you saw the Royal Enfield stand. I could see you desperately wanted to sit on that motorbike. What were you feeling as you walked towards that Himalayan?
I was really excited and I really wanted to sit on it, and it looked absolutely amazing. But I was a bit unsure, can I sit on it, can I not sit on it? I'll sit on it anyway, and if I get told off, fine. But I've sat on the best bike in the world, so I sat on it.
And when you sat on it, what happened?
My face just lit up because it just was perfect. It was absolutely amazing. I just was filled with joy. It just made me feel amazing.
And that was how people around you reacted as well, wasn't it? Because people started looking at you.
Yeah, because it was so obvious from pictures I've seen that people around me were looking at my face, seeing that it had lit up, and this was the best bike I'd ever sat on.
And that's really stuck with you, hasn't it? The Royal Enfield. But why? I mean, it's one thing to like a bike, and it's one thing to get excited by a bike, but it goes deeper than that, doesn't it? So where did we go? We went from the NEC show, and the next show we went to was the Motorcycle Live Festival, the last one at the Peterborough the Peterborough Showground, and we camped there. And the first morning when we got up, you were immediately, let's head to the Royal Enfield stand. You want to sit on the Himalayan again? We headed there. You sat on the bike, and what happened when you sat on the bike in Peterborough?
Well, a man came over and he asked to do an interview with my daddy, and Daddy said, well, you should talk to my son, he's a real fan. And then I told them why I liked the brand, what I liked about it, how kind the people were, and they gave me this keyring and a pack of stickers. And they were giving out key rings for this interview. They were just a bit plastic, they weren't the best key rings. So then he went off and got a really, really nice leather metal one, and he gave that to me. But as well as all of that, they gave me a lovely Royal Enfield mug. So now whenever I have a chocolate, I have it out of there, and it's so nice.
And that's been, I think for you, it was a sense of being welcomed by Royal Enfield. The people were so nice.
Yeah, so they didn't really treat me as a customer and as a just person who they don't really care about. They treated me as a human being, and they were treating everybody like that. So that was just lovely for them to treat somebody like a friend.
I think what I really liked was when they asked me, and I said, actually, you need to speak to my son, he's the real Royal Enfield fan, was that the guy who was running the stand didn't go, oh, I'm not speaking to a child. He was immediately engaged with you and talking to you and wanting to know what you thought. And he was as interested in what you had to say as he would have been in what I had to say.
He clearly was. And that's one of the amazing things that I found. And I absolutely loved it. Yeah.
And so there starts the love affair with Royal Enfield for Edmund, and it does show, I think, the impact of these shows and the impact that they can have on people's passions, because biking is about passion, and it is about enthusiasm, and it is about how you feel about things. And so at these shows you can have those passionate exchanges, and you can end up falling in love with a brand forevermore, as my son Edmund has done.
So I think that's a beautiful story about how a brand can have such an impact on people. And of course, the great thing at the NEC is you've got all the different brands as you jump around the show. And so just wondering, watching my son have such a connection with Royal Enfield, what for you is your favourite brand? Alex, what's your favourite brand of bike and why?
Well, I'm lucky enough to ride my favourite brand, which is Triumph. And for years, I've always just longed for a Triumph. Finally got to ride it. And so, yeah, I would say that is my favourite brand. I like the kind of old school Triumph. So it's the Bonnevilles, that type of thing. Yeah, I'm the token hipster. I like the style of it as well that goes with it.
And that's what you've got a Scrambler, haven't you?
So I've got the Street Scrambler, which I really like because I'm short and I can touch the ground with it.
But also, the Street Scrambler's got that insane exhaust that lightly cooks the inside of your thigh.
With the right thigh, yeah. It's great for winter because you can, if you ride side saddle, you can obviously heat both of your legs up at one time. But, also you can pop your gloves on it and things like that.
But do you get into the whole thing? Do you get into the whole Triumph thing with the Triumph branded clothing? And I mean, because that's the thing, isn't it? You head around the show and you go on the stands. There's Triumph t-shirts. I mean, my son has a Kawasaki teddy bear. You can just get everything. Are you that into the brand, or is it just that the bikes that speak to you?
It's the bikes more than the branded stuff, but that could be because of the Triumph stuff's quite expensive. But yeah, I think it is the bike. It's the most important thing, really, when it comes down to it. I'm not one of those people who likes to cover myself in, stickers and branded everything and show it all off. Although, on the other hand, I would very much like a Triumph Ace Cafe shirt.
No, there's an idea. Now, we recorded the podcast live at the Ace from this month on. So, when we're sat there, let's see who we can get in to do some collabs with the Ace Cafe. I love it.
Can you tell us what your favourite motorbike is, please?
Of course, it's the KTM 1290 Super Duke R.
So, Dan, what's your favourite bike brand?
Well, this is a funny one for me because I've been looking. I really want to have a British bike brand. And I go on all the websites and I look and I haven't quite settled. I want to, there is that thing, isn't there? of having a brand and signing up to this brand and wearing all their gear and loving their bikes. And it's quite exciting because there's a lot of British bikes coming back, all the old brands are coming back. So I'll go around the show and I'll see what's there. Maybe I might settle one. But if I had to say now, it's probably linking my past to my present. So when I was 17, I got a Kawasaki KMX 125 Scrambler. It was just of the time, and that was my first bike. I loved it. It was, it's nippy, as we called it back in those days. It was nippy for a 125. Whoa! And then now I got a Kawasaki Versys 650. Mm-hmm. Not because it's Kawasaki, but when I was looking for my bike, and I actually bought the bike before I even had my license. I just found this bike that I loved and I wanted to ride. And so everyone's like, no, you can't buy a bike without riding it. I'm like, this is the bike. This is the bike. So, Kawasaki, I suppose, it would have a special place in my heart for my story because it was the first bike which my mum hated me getting. That I was that rebel. And I would go off and I realised that I couldn't ride a bike. Going around corners was just crazy. And now, I got this Kawasaki Versys 650, which I love going out and riding. It is a true, riding machine for me. It's just so smooth and it, going back to my passion, that experience of riding, I got this bike which I can really ride and just enjoy without like having the fear that I had on my Kawasaki 125 and like, I'm not going to make it around the corner. This thing sticks to the road. So I'm still out there. I'm ready to be sold on a British brand. I'm open to offers. But if I had to pick something today, it's the Kawasaki.
Could we ask you a question, please?
Sure.
So what do you think was going to be your favourite bike?
GS 1300 BMW.
Lovely. And could you tell us why that would be your favourite bike?
I just like the design.
Excuse me. Could you tell us what your favourite bike is, please?
Favourite bike? BMW R1200 RS. Sorry, Yeah,
that's a nice bike. That's good. So I guess I need to share what my favourite bike brand is now. And I reckon I'm just an absolute hussy when it comes to bike brands because it is whatever I'm riding at the time. So when I had a Honda, I absolutely loved all things Honda. My first bike was a CZ 125. That is quite a difficult brand to get passionate about, but I managed it just before I blew the bike up. And then I had an MZ 125. And they're quite hard, but I just love whichever bike I'm riding, and right now I'm riding an Aprilia Touareg, which is an adventure bike, which is very much me, it has to be said. Like Dan, I bought that without test riding it.
It's the only way to go.
I fell in love with it. We were at a Rockers event at the Ace Cafe, riding down to Westminster Abbey, and I was sticking out like a sore thumb because during COVID I bought a red Vespa, which was seriously cool. I was with the vibe, but I did stick out like a sore thumb.
You were the only one on a scooter, and everyone else was on proper bikes.
Really nice. They were like Nortons, and they were just BSAs and Royal Enfields and just all those cafe racers. They looked absolutely stunning. There were a couple of Vincents there, just gorgeous. And there's me on a little 125 Vespa. And then as we left the Ace, I kind of pulled in behind this Aprilia Touareg, and it's stunning. Just what a gorgeous bike. And I followed, it was Saf from MCN who was test riding it. And it's just the balance, the poise, that it just sat in traffic so beautifully. And that was what was concerning me, that, having a big adventure bike, those kind of mid-weight adventure bikes in London are not necessarily the best idea, but just stunning. So yeah, I absolutely love all things Aprilia at the minute, and I find myself defending their slow parts and driving an hour and a half to the nearest dealer and that kind of stuff. But I absolutely love Aprilia at the minute. Anything to do with them, I am fully bought in on.
We're here with Sam Manicom, international rider and author. So, how long have you been coming to this show?
Oh gosh, I'm going to make myself sound really old with this. I first started coming to this show when it was called the International Motorcycle Show. And I actually found the other day all of my exhibitor cards. And my goodness, I looked young on that first one.
Wow. And what is it that you like about the show here?
there are lots of things that I like about this show. One of them is that it's in the middle of the UK, or in the middle of England. So you get people from Scotland, from Ireland, from Wales, from England. Everybody comes here. It's a real crossroads. But you also get people travelling in from mainland Europe and places like that. It's a great place to see all of the new bikes and to link up with friends.
Lovely, and that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So there we are then. There's lots of things to be catching up with at the NEC. Do you know what? It's people complain about there being a show in the middle of winter, in the middle of country, and it's always wet and it's cold and it's miserable. But I love it because it it gives you a lift. It gives you something to go and see, something to go and do. And when I arrive at the NEC, I always head straight to whichever brand or whichever thing is really, like for example, this time it's the new Himalayan, the new Royal Enfield Himalayan. That's really exciting. I think they seem to have really listened to what people have been saying about the current Himalayan. Adventure. Go and see which adventure riders are there, who's brought books, who's brought stories. That's where I head. That's the first thing I head for. What about you, Dan?
I think I'm going to go to your worst nightmare, which is the test ride zone.
Oh, I love the test.
No, because like any bike that you would get on, you would just want to buy. That's the problem. But
is true.
I think for me, it's like just going somewhere and a great experience where you just ride different brands that you know, instead of going to a dealer and that dealer and that dealer, they're all there. Get on the bike and see, and maybe I might find that elusive favourite brand.
That'd be cool. What about you, Alex?
I'm going to head to the electric motorbikes because I'm kind of weirdly fascinated.
You're so
by them.
on brand hipster.
Oh,
right now.
I'm so on brand hipster. Yeah,
Hipster.
no, I'm weirdly fascinated by electric motorbikes, and having ridden a few, I kind of quite like it, and I like that kind of whooshy future. I'm on the Star Wars noise machine.
Yeah.
Can you say that? Also, I'm going to do that because I figure probably that they'll let me ride them.
And
they don't
have
make
been.
noise.
Well, and they do. Now, is it Honda or who's the electric car manufacturer that adds a noise to their car so you can hear them coming? And I think that's a trick that's missed with motorbikes because it would put the Star Wars sound on.
Well, Livewire have done that deliberately. They deliberately have a straight cut gear in the gearbox in there, so it makes a noise. And I have to say, having ridden one, it does make a noise like Star Wars on the future. And over 40 miles an hour, you're kind of slightly disappointed that the wheels haven't retracted into the bodywork. But yeah, no, I'm heading for the electric stuff because it is the future and I am on brand.
Hello. Could you tell us first what's your name?
Yeah, of course. My name's Harry and I work for Maven.
It's nice to meet you, Harry. Could you tell us why you came to the show and what you like about it, please?
Of course, I've come to this show alongside my Maven team here, and we're representing our bikes as long as our new launch of the Maven RM1S. And also I get to view all the stands. It's pretty amazing.
Lovely. And we were going to come here and look at Livewire, but sadly a person who works in our team came off at Livewire, so we decided that he'd probably have avoided the accident if he came here. So we've decided to come to you.
Yes, 100%. We actually are doing test rides here as well, but these bikes are very, very good at manoeuvring, and you probably could have avoided that but you've got some nice sharp corners around here, and you should definitely give it a go.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. Well, next month you can join us. We're recording live at the Ace Cafe, and we're talking to Mark Willsmore, who's going to tell us the story of the Ace and how it all came back together as we head to the 30th anniversary of the Ace reunion. We'll also be interspersing that podcast with some of the carols, which are going to be taking place on the evening of Sunday, the 17th of December. So join us live at the Ace Cafe on Sunday, the 17th of December for carols, and on Thursday, the 21st for the live recording of this podcast with Mark Willsmore. Thank you for listening. Tune in next month. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spanners and Coffee podcast.